Now, when it comes to pilot training, I know what you're thinking. How's he going to save me £280,000? This is a lie. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, I'm an airline pilot. I work with aspiring airline pilots. I have seen mistake after mistake after mistake, and I just want you to not make the same mistakes that I've seen on a day-to-day basis, speaking to hundreds of aspiring pilots, hundreds of people that have come through the system, having spent loads and loads of money on things that didn't necessarily have to be bought, have to be spent on. You'll know exactly what to avoid and what to look out for when it comes to the finances, so that when you're making that substantial investment of £150,000 plus towards your pilot training, that you're putting all the money into the right places and that you're not going down the wrong path, which is going to cost you upwards of £280,000. Now, these are three fundamental things that I want you to really look out for when it comes to starting your journey towards becoming a pilot. The first one, because we're going to jump straight into it, is making sure you get the right license. And what I mean by that is, if you're a UK citizen, you need to be getting a UK license. There's a caveat to it. If you have a European right to live and work, then of course getting a European license could also be beneficial. But generally, if you're a UK citizen and you're living and your only right to live and work is in the UK, then the best course of action is to go for a UK license, not a European license. I've seen a number of people get on calls with me telling me that they've gone for European licenses when they have no right to live and work in Europe. As of Brexit, and because of Brexit, you are now in a position, if you are in that particular environment, where you will then have to convert the license by the end of your training to a UK license. Now, there are some airlines that will take you with a European license and a UK right to live and work. There are some, but there are very, very few. So in order to broaden your options and broaden your horizons with regards to airline opportunities, what you're going to have to do is convert the license to either a UK license or try to get both at the end of your training. And that can cost you quite substantially. If I was to break down the costs for you right now, first thing you're going to have to do is get all ATPL exams redone. So that's going to cost you time, as well as money for the exams itself. We'll go through the time and the travel and the accommodation bit a little bit later, but in order to sit the UK ATPL exams, can be anywhere between about £70 to £100, depending on where you go for the actual tests themselves. So that is potentially something that you're going to have to fork out for at least 13 exams. Then that could be anywhere between £1,200 to £1,300 worth of physical money that you're going to have to put towards redoing your license, not only to do the actual exams, but also for any material, any training resources. I haven't even added that into this, but that's going to cost you too. The next thing you're going to have to do is a UK Class 1 medical as well. So you're going to have to do 2 medical exams, and they can be £700 to £900 for your initial Class 1 medical, depending on where you do it. So again, that's going to be another cost that you're going to incur. There's the skills tests with the UK examiners that you're going to have to do, as well as the hiring of the aircraft, as well as doing some lessons with the aircraft so that you can get familiar with it before you then have to resit the CPL test or the IR test that you're going to be doing in a UK environment. So that's going to cost you anywhere between £1,000 to £1,500 for the actual exam itself. That doesn't actually include the differences training, which could cost you anywhere between £2,000 to £6,000 plus pounds that you're going to have to be putting towards a differences course when it comes to the end of your training to change your license from a European to a UK license, or to try and obtain both dual licenses. So that's going to cost you around £2,000 to £6,000. We'll average it at about £2,000. Next, we have the CAA license issuance fee. These are going to cost you some money. It's only about £300 if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, but that's still some money that you're going to have to end up forking out towards the mistake that you made to begin with. Then you're going to have to do dual renewals every single year if you do end up continuing with both licenses. If you don't get a job, then you're going to have to renew the licenses every year, the IR rating every year, 2 medicals every year, and that can cost anywhere between £300 to £600 depending on what you have to do with regards to those. So the 2 proficiency checks a year and 2 medicals a year. And now the travel and accommodation with the reset fees. If you end up doing resits, we'll average out a little bit that you might have to do maybe 1 or 2 resits. But still, despite that, with the ATO admin fees, with the travel, with the accommodation, the extra resources that you're going to end up spending, that could be anywhere between £3,000 plus. So with all of that added together, we have a ballpark figure of around £7,000 to £15,000, depending on how much you're going to end up spending towards the end of your training to renew or get that dual license. So as you can see, we're already in the thousands, which is not a good start when it comes to your pilot journey. You do not want to end up having to fork out more money than expected when you're already however many thousands of pounds deep in debt. Now, this is a good interjection. This is our first example of how you can end up saving money just by simply making the right decision to begin with. If you are interested in becoming an airline pilot and you want help on that journey, you want to avoid all of these expenses that might not be completely apparent to begin with. I've gone through those mistakes. I've made those trials and those errors. I've seen other people make these errors and mistakes and cost them lots of money and, more importantly, time, which then cost them even more money. So if you're interested in expediting and streamlining your process to the flight deck, then I can offer that to you. All you have to do is go into the description below, book in a call with myself, and then I will discuss with you whether or not we can work together towards hopefully nurturing you towards the industry itself. Now, with that being said, let's go back to the video. So the second thing that you need to really knuckle down on is the hidden cost of a type rating. When I started out, one thing that I didn't know about was the type rating costs. I just started out assuming that it was just going to be the £130,000 or £120,000 for the training itself. But the reality was, at the end of the training, I also had to pay by myself for a type rating. And a type rating is essentially something that's going to allow you to fly a big jet or any particular aircraft for a particular airline. And a lot of airlines, when you're starting out, will make you self-fund that. So they'll make you pay for it yourself. And of course, that's not ideal for us when we're already however many thousands of pounds deep. But they also know that there's a massive demand when it comes to recruitment and when it comes to cadets for jobs. So we are going to be willing to pay that substantial amount. And this is a sad reality of the industry that we are currently in. However, because of the massive pilot shortage we currently have, a lot of airlines have now started introducing funding for the particular type rating course. So it makes it a little bit easier. But if you, for example, didn't know of the funding, or you didn't do any research into it, or you didn't find out, oh, this is what it's going to cost at the end of my training for a type rating, or I could go for this program, which is going to include the type rating within the training costs anyway, that could have costed you about 25k, which it did for me. It costed me around 25k at the end. If I had, when I started out, looked for programs that would already include the type rating fees within them, then I would have applied for those. And by the end of my training, I wouldn't have had to pay that £25,000 by myself for the type rating itself. So when it comes to your journey itself, try as well to look for courses that are going to offer you and fund you for your type rating. That way, you can then save potentially £25,000 up if you apply for the right course and you get into the right course. And if you need help with that, again, like I said, go into the description and hopefully I can work with you towards getting onto one of those programs. Because as well as that, they are very competitive. A lot of people do apply for those. And so you have to be a very high level candidate in order to get into them. But that being said, it doesn't mean you cannot. If you feel like you're doubtful or you feel like you can't get into those particular programs, I myself had those similar limiting beliefs. I was bottom sets when I was in primary school and in secondary school. And then I managed to turn that all around. And hopefully when you crush those limiting beliefs, you can do the same for yourself. And you will be absolutely amazed at how powerful your brain can physically be when you push it to its limits. The final and monstrous cost that you could potentially incur if you make this mistake is not going straight into it. And what I mean by that, and I've seen this on a very regular basis, and you might be victim to it as well. And I know that a lot of people have speculation about this. I need a uni degree. I need to be stable first. I need a backup plan. And that's absolutely fine. I completely understand that. I myself also thought the same thing. I'm from an Asian background. My parents will always tell me, get a degree first. However, if you can justify and you can understand why it might be more beneficial, and what I did was I ran the numbers the same way I'm going to show you right now. First and foremost, as a disclaimer, this is my own opinion. I genuinely believe that it's important to have a backup plan. It's always important to have something that will hopefully be there in case everything does fail. But that doesn't necessarily mean you need it in place before you start. That's how I perceive this particular topic. When it comes to getting a uni degree first, if you feel like you need it, then that's absolutely fine. Of course, go for it. But the way that I'm logically going to break it down for you is that when it comes to the tuition fees, you're going to end up spending about £9,250 per year for 3 years. And what does that equate to? That's £27,750. So about 27k in total for your tuition fees. You haven't also factored in the accommodation fees, the travel, everything else. You're going to be going out to nights out with your friends, going to societies, all of these things. You think you might be able to save in that interim. You'll just go and work and you'll just hammer it all up. I promise you, if you go to uni, and I've seen it from my own friends, you'll end up spending money out in uni. You'll end up probably spending more than you realized and more than you bargained for. And so by the end of uni, you'll probably end up with much the same as what you had before anyway. But again, I'm going to break it down for you. Living costs wise, you'll end up spending, and this is an average, about £9,000 to £12,000 per year for 3 years. What does that equate to? Well, that's about £27,000 to £36,000 per year. As well as that, it's going to cost you for the tuition fees, which we said was £27,750. So altogether, that's around 50k, right? So Adam, you said at the start of the video that it's going to cost me £280,000 plus if I make these mistakes. Well, here is the substantial and monstrous mistake that you could make that could cost you the most. And it's with time. The time is what is going to cost you the most. If you do not take action on your goals, if you think to yourself, I want to be a pilot, that's all I ever wanted to do, I don't really see anything past that. My future was always destined towards becoming a commercial pilot. And you're going to university and doing a IT degree, for example, nothing against IT degrees, but you go to uni and you do an IT degree for 3 years. That is 3 years wasted. Because ultimately, you don't even want to go into IT in the end. You want to be a pilot. So what does that mean financially? Well, 3 years of a 65k salary missed out on will equate to around £195,000. So when you think about your training, how much is going to cost? 130k, right? If you had just gone straight into training and it took you 2 years, even 3 years to do your training, you'll then start earning around an average of about 65k to start with. And 3 years down the line after that, you'll have made 195-ish K. And of course, when it comes to the uni element, yeah, you'll have a backup plan. You'll have your university degree before you start your training. That's absolutely fine. But in my mind, and this is, again, my own opinion, in my mind, a backup plan is a backup plan for a reason. When it comes to your primary plan, you should be taking every step towards that you physically can. And that's how I pursued this career. I decided I'm going to take every step I can towards this goal of becoming a pilot first. If it fails, then I have my backup plan. Then I'll go back to uni. Because you can do that. In the UK, if for whatever reason everything fails, you can go and get a student loan and go to uni after you've tried to get into flight school, after you've tried all of these things. There's a gap year for a reason as well. People go on their gap year, travel, they do whatever they want, and then they start uni. You can defer your entry into uni, but we are susceptible to the psychological constraint that we have to, as soon as we finish A-levels, go straight into uni. And that is a cultural thing. I understand it. I'm from an Asian background. I completely get it. I've seen my family do the same thing. But what's really important is if you are aspiring to be a pilot, if you're really convicted that that is your goal, then there shouldn't be anything getting in the way of that. I genuinely believe that the people that make it in this industry and the people that are relentless in terms of their pursuit of becoming a pilot, they are the ones that are successful. And they are the ones that are the best pilots. They're the ones that enjoy the job. They're the ones that really embrace the fact that you are doing something that took you years and took you a lot of sacrifice and took you a lot of growth. Now, please, I don't want you to get this twisted. I, of course, advocate that if you think that a uni degree is absolutely necessary, then go for your uni degree. I personally didn't. I do not regret it. I actually am really grateful for the fact that I just went straight into becoming a pilot, because by the time I finished, I was in a drastically better position than the majority of the people around me. And that is not in any way to brag about it. It's just simply because I'm proud of the fact that I decided I wasn't going to wait around, that I was going to take action, and I was going to pursue that goal relentlessly to become an airline pilot. Now, if you're interested in working with me, go into the description, click on the link below. I promise you, at whatever stage that you are at, there is something for you. I've made it so that I can help you at every single stage of your journey. So all I urge you to do, go into that description, click on that link, and then hopefully we can start working together, streamlining the journey, and hopefully saving you thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds in the process as well. That being said, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you very, very soon.